The multiverse is the idea of our universe not being the only universe out there. What if there were other universes out there existing alongside our own ones, with different physics, different planets, or maybe even different versions of ourselves? It's an idea that's been really hot right now in books and movies. But we really only have ideas about how there might be multiple universes. In spite of this, there's actually a lot of evidence that seems to suggest it could exist. Some people often wonder what a parallel universe version of themselves could be like, sometimes with different genders and personalities. Lots of books and movies, people often visit worlds that are like our world, but different. Maybe humans act differently, develop in technology faster or slower, maybe even have different clothes. Alright, let's get into it. Let's dig into the idea of the multiverse, and hopefully help explain this idea. We did lots of research behind the concept of the multiverse, and found out that it's kind of hard to wrap your head around. Alright, first off, when we talk about the multiverse, what are we talking about? There are many different theories about it, but they all correspond to, the idea that our universe is in a sea of other universes, all with different properties of science and physics that change it slightly or dramatically. There could be a universe where gravity works backwards. Light could be dark in another universe. Pretty much, if you can think of a variation to a universe, it exists out there. And that small thought just there is what makes the multiverse what it is. There are a lot of different ideas about how the multiverse might work, but the problem is, we can't test these theories or prove that the multiverse exists. But all of these are built from a backbone of science, which brings us to idea number 1, the eternal inflation theory. Let's rewind a long time ago. Before space was full of things, it was once just space. It was empty. We can think of an empty universe where there's no atoms, no protons, no neutrons. Some scientists think that emptiness started growing really fast, like faster than anything we know today. So space is expanding super fast in all directions, but some scientists think that in some pockets of space, things started to slow down. Suddenly, those pockets weren't growing as fast as the rest of space. This is what happened to our corner of the cosmos, what we call the universe. And when things start to slow down, it leads to the formation of cosmic dust and stars. And eventually, planets like ours. This is when it gets really incomprehensible. Some scientists think some of the empty space kept expanding and formed pockets like ours. What does that mean? Well, let's picture a ball of bread dough, and space is a giant ball of rising dough. It's slowly getting bigger and rounder in all directions. Now imagine in one spot it stopped rising as fast. It slowed down, forming a little dimple in the bread that became a tiny universe. Now imagine that somewhere else on the dough, another little pocket slowed down too, creating another tiny universe. But since the dough between these universes is growing faster and faster, it's slowly pushing them further and further apart. Now imagine that this was happening all over the dough at different times, little pockets of dough creating universes, and the space between them pushing them apart, meaning that some universes will never know there are other universes out there. Okay. This theory suggests there are multiple universes out there, or, to be more precise, a multiverse. Okay, on to multiverse idea number 2, the many world models. So, this one comes with the idea that everything that happens, there could be a universe where it didn't happen. Think of cause and effect, right? So, think of it as a timeline. As an example, say you decided to put your raincoat in your bag. There could be a universe where you didn't put your raincoat in your bag. And that decision branches off into even more universes. If we're thinking of it as branches on a tree, the multiverse would be the trunk, the stem, and the branches would be the universe. And of course, each branch can have many different branches, so you can branch off over and over again. This idea stems off into something called quantum mechanics, or quantum theory. That has to do with how super tiny particles behave. Quantum means the smallest amount you can have of something, and mechanics is about motion and action. So quantum mechanics is the action of the smallest things. So when we look at these very tiny particles, we seem to notice something very weird. They seem to be in two different places at the same time, but when they interact with something, they suddenly disappear in just one place. So it's in two places at once, and then just in one place. I'll put it this way. Say there are two very tiny doors on a very tiny wall. Both doors open, and a particle seems to be standing in both of them at the same time. But when we send another particle to interact with it, the weird double door standing particle suddenly appears in just the left door, and the right door is empty. Based on our best evidence, this seems to be how particles work on a very teeny tiny, ultra microscopic level. So some scientists think that when this happens, our universe splits into two timelines, one where the particle's in the left door, and one where the particle's in the right door. And if you scale that up, from particles to atoms to molecules to cells and eventually to us animals, maybe every action we take also splits the universe into multiple realities. Like one where you put a raincoat into your bag, and one where you didn't. If your brain is twisting with these theories, you're not alone. A lot of scientists struggle with thinking about quantum theory. In fact, one famous scientist named Edward Schrödinger came up with a thought experiment to show how totally bizarre this idea is. You may have heard it before. This is the Schrödinger's cat idea. Here's how it works. Imagine a box, a special box, and in it he puts a cat. And in this box is also a vial of poison gas that will release if it's triggered. But here's the catch. The vial is triggered by teeny tiny particles. If the particle is in one place, the vial stays closed. If it's in another place, the vial opens and bye-bye cat. But given what we know about quantum mechanics, the particle is in both places at once. It will only pick up on those two options. If we don't open the box, the particle is both triggering the poison and not triggering it at the same time. So if you believe in quantum nonsense, the cat is both dead and alive at the same time. So, the multiverse theory would say that there's one universe where the cat wound up living, and one where it's dead. This also means that there could be a universe where Schrödinger himself was the experiment, and the cat was watching him. The multiverse is the idea of our universe being a part of many different realities. Some realities might have different properties. Some ideas in the multiverse include big concepts in science like quantum mechanics and string theory, an idea we didn't discuss today, and even though some of these ideas have some basis in science, they are still unproven. And we might never be able to prove them, or disprove them. So while the multiverses are fun to think about, don't expect to go exploring one in real life. For that you'll need a book or a movie.